This is CBC Vancouver News.
But leave it up to the parents where they're comfortable, they can talk about issues.
Teachers are experts in their field, and we know what is age appropriate.
Thousands of people in BC attend rallies against and for teaching gender diversity in BC schools. More on the protests and arrests.
It's emotionally wrenching.
More tragedy in BC's battle against wildfires. 4 firefighters have been killed in a crash.
Last night's incident is outrageous, just like some of the previous ones.
And BC's transportation minister suspends the licenses of a trucking company whose rig hit a North Vancouver overpass, closing part of Highway 1. Police say the driver ran off. Good evening, I'm Dan Burritt. Thanks for joining us. Across the country and here in BC, thousands of people hit the streets demanding an end to education about sexual orientation and gender identity in schools. They were met with counter-rallies, people determined to defend LGBTQ+ rights. Yasmin Gandam has a look at a sometimes tense day.
A brief altercation quickly turned heated in Vancouver, with one protester being taken away in handcuffs.
Protect trans kids!
But counter-protesters outnumbered those who are against sexual orientation and gender identity programs in schools, also known as SOGI.
What can you say about what actually is being taught in school?
Well, the thing is, teachers are experts in their field, and we know what is age appropriate. And really, when we start with our youngest students, it's all about families and how our families are not all the same.
She says kids are being taught about inclusion of all people, and that can save lives.
I was part of our Allies Club at school, and at the first club, there was a student who came out as trans and introduced her pronouns as she, her, and it was the best space for her.
The anti-SOGI rallies were organized across the country by a group called 1 Million March for Children. Their posters say participants are, quote, standing together against gender ideology in schools. But there is no specific SOGI curriculum in BC, and teachers are not forced to teach anything. K-12 students have subjects around human rights, respecting diversity, and responding to discrimination.
It's uncomfortable enough to talk about it sometimes, but leave it up to the parents where they're comfortable, they can talk about issues and things that's going on in their lives and things like that. It's not up to the teachers as far as I'm concerned.
In Victoria, things also turned tense with 2 arrests and almost 3,000 people in attendance at a rally outside the legislature. Police told people to leave the area for safety reasons. Surrey saw demonstrations too, with signs reading "Love is love" and others chanting "Leave our children alone." Like many places in Kamloops, counter-protesters in support of SOGI outnumbered the others. In Kelowna, roughly 350 people gathered, both sides clashing at the rally held across from City Hall.
They are learning these things.
Back in Vancouver, high school students out today expressed mixed feelings about SOGI.
I don't want it to create confusion in children's minds, but I feel like it could be done in a way that's less, lesser frequency, at a lesser frequency.
I say that to them, you know, they can come talk to my mom at my funeral if they want to stop it. That's the honest answer there. They can go to some kids' funerals.
Regardless of what side the protesters fall on, politicians and BC's Human Rights Commissioner have come out against the, quote, hate-fueled marches, all saying the rights of trans and LGBTQ+ people are not up for debate. Yasmin Gandam, CBC News, Vancouver.
More tragedy has hit BC's efforts to fight wildfires. The RCMP says 4 wildfire fighters have been killed in a crash outside Kamloops. Now, they say the 4 young BC men, all wildfire service subcontractors, were heading back from firefighting efforts early on Tuesday morning when the pickup truck they were in collided head-on with a semi on Highway 1 near Wallishan, west of Kamloops. All 4 died at the scene. The semi driver managed to escape his burning rig. The highway was closed for hours.
Early determination is that the pickup truck that the 4 were in had failed to navigate a curve in the highway. and crossed the center line, striking this semi-truck. Thoughts and prayers go out for the friends and families of all those who are affected by deaths like this, especially related to people who are, helping to keep our province safe.
WorkSafe is also looking into their deaths. Sadly, they're only the latest victims of this year's wildfire season. In July, 19-year-old Devon Gale was killed by a falling tree while fighting a blaze near her hometown of Revelstoke. Her brother helped pull her out before she died. Days later, 25-year-old Zach Muse was killed when his ATV rolled off a steep drop north of Fort St. John as he helped fight the massive Donny Creek wildfire in northeast BC. Our forests minister says the 4 victims from this week were coming back from work in Vanderhoof. Their deaths add to the grief of the most destructive wildfire season in BC and Canadian history.
It's been such a tough season, and this is just more bad news. It's really, it's emotionally wrenching and heartbreaking to hear of people who are completed their work on their way home and meet with their deaths on the road. It's really tragic.
It's 300 active wildfires are still burning across BC. The season is not over yet. Ralston, Premier David Eby, and Prime Minister Trudeau shared condolences for the victims' families, friends, and colleagues. BC's Transportation Minister has suspended a trucking company's licenses after one of its rigs hit a highway overpass in North Vancouver, as we showed you last night. Police say the driver ran away while the eastbound lanes of Highway 1 were closed for hours. More now from the CBC's Saurabh Sandhu.
The Tuesday evening commute home was a long one for North Vancouver residents after a truck hit an overpass on Highway 1 north of Second Narrows Bridge.
Last night's incident is outrageous, just like some of the previous ones, damaging to the infrastructure, costing people coming home from work.
But this time, North Vancouver RCMP says the driver of the truck was nowhere to be found. Police say the driver's identity remains unknown. They have issued a violation ticket to the owner of the truck, but Minister Fleming says that is not enough.
The company that was involved in the incident last night has had their entire fleet's license suspended, pending the investigation by the commercial vehicle safety agencies.
Industry experts say there are route planning tools available to eliminate human error.
The Ministry of Transportation and Highways has a permit process where every single obstacle is identified on a given route.
But that either wasn't followed or did not work.
The permitting office prescribes a safe route. Why, in this instance and others, those routes are deviated from is a question for the investigation to take.
This is the overpass that was hit by a truck last night. On the structure itself, there are yellow signs stating the heights of the overpass. Trucking industry experts say these signs are meant to serve as a last-minute reminder to the truckers to avoid a crash. But yet, somehow the truck drivers are failing to take a note of the warning. RCMP says it has been collaborating with other agencies in the province to enforce compliance. But what they find is sometimes surprising.
There's 2 types. One is that you have a driver who essentially has almost no knowledge of the rules and regulations in relation to commercial vehicles.
Minister Fleming says digital tools are available for training and permitting processes.
We've also implemented a much stronger licensing regime in BC, and while it's only a little over a year old, the mandatory entry-level training regime in British Columbia.
The province says it will be introducing stricter measures this fall to enforce compliance from the trucking industry. Saurabh Sandhu, CBC News, North Vancouver.
MPs are back in the House of Commons for the fall session, with the Prime Minister under fire again over the rising cost of living. Ottawa has pledged to help by removing the GST on new rental construction. Our John Hernandez has more on what that might do for renters here in BC.
This week's return of the House of Commons started with applause for the Prime Minister, swiftly followed by criticism over mounting housing unaffordability.
Mr. Speaker, it took him 8 years to cause this housing hell. How long will it take to fix it?
the Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Speaker, the opposition leaders bickering won't help get houses built. Our plan does.
A plan he says is bolstered by the recently announced move to eliminate GST for construction of new rental apartments. Ottawa says the goal is to spur development, build rental housing stock, and bridge the affordability gap.
This can mean millions of dollars in savings.
Economists say the policy will translate into big savings for rental projects in expensive markets like BC, and that could jumpstart stalled developments struggling with costs.
The removal of the GST will mean that certain projects that were kind of marginal and they were just not going ahead because the math didn't quite pencil out will now be profitable for them to go ahead.
It's one step positive in a forward direction.
This Kelowna-based developer agrees.
It makes the residential rental portfolio more palatable in terms of reducing one more barrier to bringing them online.
Rental stock that's desperately needed in the province. The latest rentals.ca report shows BC has the highest average listed rents in the country at more than $2,600 per month. In Vancouver, the average listing is more than $3,300 a month, the highest for any city in the country. Still, experts agree the GST rebate won't change those prices anytime soon.
What this might do is keep a lid on rents rising any further. I don't think we're going to see rents actually fall as a result of this particular policy.
It also won't apply to duplexes, triplexes, and housing co-ops. That means smaller projects in Vancouver, which just approved sweeping zoning changes to allow 3 to 6 units on residential lots, won't qualify.
It unfortunately misses actually what the city of Vancouver just did in terms of the multiplex rezoning, that it actually misses the reality that many rental projects actually are also quite small.
A policy that could take years to yield results, as many renters feel the squeeze right now. John Hernandez, CBC News, Vancouver.
The BC government, meanwhile, says it is planning to crack down on short-term rentals this fall. Cities and towns are in charge of local rules, but the housing minister says that might change.
Well, local governments initially wanted to have the control of doing that, but now all local governments, I haven't had a single local government yet come to me, all of them are saying, we need you to be part of the solution, we need it to be a provincial-wide solution, and so that will be reflected in the legislation that's coming this fall, where the province steps in and takes a bigger role in addressing short-term rentals.
This comes after a new study by McGill researchers estimates 2022 rents in BC went up by about 17% because of the impact of short-term rentals. Details on enforcement are expected to be part of the legislation when it's rolled out. Conservation officers say they have now killed a coyote after 9 people were bitten in Mission in the last week. Officers say they put the animal down early this morning near where 3 workers were bitten. No one has been seriously hurt. Mission's mayor, though, says they believe human interference is to blame. He's asking people to not feed wildlife. Vancouver police are now offering free cell phones to seniors so they can call 911 if they need to. Seniors on fixed incomes or low incomes can get one for free. They include a 14-day standby time and large, easy-to-read keys. They can only be used to call 911, mind, no texting or data. You can get one at the VPD's Cambie Street headquarters. We know what the maple leaf looks like, and most of us are familiar with BC's flag. But what about the flag of your city or town? Almost every municipality in this province has spent time and money designing and creating a flag for their region. But as Justin McElroy shows us, not all pennants are created equal.
All week, mayors and councillors from across British Columbia are gathered here at the Union of BC Municipalities Convention. But there's one other group that gathers just right now for only once a year in one place in this room, and that is...
How does it feel to be up here with all of these stars? This isn't exciting. To see all of BC's flags in one place is a rare sight.
This is amazing.
If there's one expert on BC municipal flags, it's probably Dean McGee.
I started researching municipal flags in the early 2000s, and it just kept snowballing.
And what he found wasn't good.
See, a good flag should not require writing to tell you which one it is. So, Canal Flats.
Not a good flag.
No, it doesn't stand out. You've got what we call a Canadian pale. The pale is the stripe in the middle. There we got another Canadian pale. Valley of the Swans.
Gray's not a good color for a flag.
It's not good. They put it on a Canadian pale and giant block letters, City of Kamloops.
Who needs that?
You don't need that. You don't need that.
According to experts, a good flag generally has a simple color scheme, clear visuals, and some symbolism that ties the flag clearly to its place. So there's symbolism, we've got bold imagery, it looks like what you might see for a traditional country flag.
Yes, and it stands out. When you see it flopping on the side of the highway, you can still see enough of it to see that's the Abbotsford flag and not something else.
If only the other 161 municipalities had followed their cue.
Yes.
We need artificial wind, please. But this is literally the view at the end of my driveway, so how can I say no to this?
But it does have Clearwater's name on it, and that's a big no-no for flags.
Well, yeah, maybe, but we don't have a town crest yet.
But maybe there's hope for our mayors and our flags, after all.
So I think we need to do a rethink on our flag. We have beautiful Wells Gray Park up the road, and I think we need to take advantage of that as well.
It may not be the biggest pledge made at this conference, but it certainly stands the tallest. Justin McElroy, CBC News, Vancouver.
Robots to fight loneliness? Stick around for this story. Hello to everyone watching our commercial-free live stream tonight. Thanks for being here. The charity that runs a so-called grief camp each year says it is turning away far more families than it's able to welcome. The pandemic and our toxic drug crisis have led to a surge in demand and a call for Ottawa to step in. As Yasmin Khanea reports, the wait list is hundreds deep.
That young, you don't really learn about that emotion. You don't know how to deal with it. You don't know why you're feeling it, and you don't know why it has happened to you.
17-year-old Lily Friesen's father died when she was 7. That's when she started going to Camp Carey with her mother to process their grief.
I quite look forward to it because in my day-to-day life, I don't always get an opportunity to really process my grief because everything is always moving and so busy. And when your world stops, when someone dies, the rest of the world keeps going.
But last year, the unthinkable happened. Her mother died too. So this weekend, she's attending the camp with her godfather.
I love going because it means I get a chance to really connect with the people I've lost and honor them and talk about them in such a beautiful way. There's lots of tears, but there's a lot of laughs as well and a lot of really happy memories.
The camp prioritizes young people, and the charity that runs it says about 100 families applied to attend, but they could only take 35.
And so when we find ourselves having to turn away kind of one family for every family we can take, we just know that we need to let people know that we're struggling with this overwhelming need.
She says the camp has grown over the years as awareness has spread. The need is also growing, with more and more families grieving people lost to COVID-19, drug overdoses, and for Indigenous families, the finding of unmarked children's graves.
It's very real. All of us will experience grief and loss. And for those who are most vulnerable, it can really change the trajectory of their life.
The charity mainly relies on donations. At this point, there isn't enough money to add more camps. Those behind the cause are urging the federal government to fold it into a national bereavement strategy.
So without sort of that ability to have a regular stream of funding, it's difficult for us to, to kind of meet all the needs and so heartbreaking to kind of turn people away. I just feel like it's time that we kind of bring this out of the shadows.
Yasmin Khanea, CBC News, Vancouver.
Can a robot help cure loneliness? Canada is now one of several countries trying to answer that question with a study looking at human-robot interactions. Our Tanya Fletcher went to a retirement home in West Vancouver where robots hang out with residents.
Am I boring you? You're sleepy.
102-year-old Charlotte England has an audience of robots keeping her company.
I'm going to make Nanaimo bars.
Social robots, in fact. Meet Kiwi and Mango. They're at the center of a study examining whether artificial intelligence can be used to help care for older people. They're a big hit with residents here. They say the pandemic left many seniors feeling isolated.
I think one of these to help the loneliness would be great. I don't see my children that often, but I mean, I could play with him all morning.
It's fun company, you know, kind of. You don't have to feed them, you don't have to clean them, you don't have to take them for a walk. Perfect.
The AI companions are the size of a small pet and use emotional robotic software that learns and mimics human emotion.
As soon as you come home from work, it will run to the door to greet you. It gets really active and it actively seeks your love. It follows you everywhere and it goes to the home to follow all different kind of people and try to check up to see what people is doing. It's kind of like a domestic cat.
With a 360-degree camera on top, these two can recognize faces and voices, even reach up for a hug.
So it knows that Tanya is standing there and you're standing there with the camera. This robot loves camera, so it always looks at that camera.
The two have been trained to take after their lead companion, leading to different personalities and even moments of jealousy.
Oh, you're getting jealous? You want to be touched too? Yes, you do.
UBC researchers worked with the Japanese manufacturer to bring Kiwi and Mango here, and now Canada is part of an ongoing international study that also includes Hong Kong and Singapore to study human-robot interactions. Am I right? Researchers say they'll gather and analyze the results from around the globe.
So we want to compare our data. It's kind of unique. It's a little bit different here in Canada. The Canadians are a little bit reserved in terms of like having new technology like this.
They'll spend the next few months recording interactions between the residents and robots, then publish those findings to help shape the future of seniors' care. Tanya Fletcher, CBC News, West Vancouver.
There's a live shot of the Port of Vancouver and Burrard Inlet. Darius will have your BC-wide weather forecast right after this.
It's the stuff of Hollywood. Green men meeting startled Earthlings. Green men from the planet Mars.
He is mankind, developed to its ultimate intelligence.
Oh, yeah, Mars, because of the fact that we thought there was life on it, that we want to see Mars, we don't want to be alone. And so people want to see Mars through the telescope and maybe see those little green men.
Legends aside, Mars has captured more imaginations than E.T. Compared to the other planets, it's a showstopper, a planet of such contrasts, it still thrills avid astronomer Dave Dodge.
Mount Everest, the tallest mountain on the Earth. We have on Mars mountains that dwarf Mount Everest. The Grand Canyon, the deepest canyon one of the deepest canyons on the face of the Earth, is a mere pittance by comparison to Valley Marianas. It goes from, if you could place the Mariner Valley on the Earth, it would go from Montreal to Vancouver, and you could stick the Grand Canyon 10 times over inside it.
This is what Mars looks like through the eyepiece of a telescope, and tonight will be the best view in a long time. Mars will be the closest it has been to the Northern Hemisphere in 70 years, just 58 million kilometers away. A distance that would take up to 9 months to travel.
I have seen Mars many times, but this is my first real time for seeing Mars. And the next time it gets this close, it'll be 2003.
A good look at Mars is enough to get Jerry Knight out on top of Cypress Mountain at midnight. Jerry's been an astronomy buff since he was 9 years old.
Why do you want to look at Mars? Well, because it's
the only planet we can really and truly see surface markings on. That's important. It's rare that we get an opportunity to actually do that, so you grab it when you can.
Catherine Clark, CBC News, Vancouver.
Hi, I'm Amy Bell. Here's what's in your CBC Vancouver inbox. With the changes to how Canada is able to access journalism online and on social media, we want to assure you that when you're looking for CBC News, you'll always be able to find us. Wherever you are in BC, local news, breaking stories, and the latest from around the world is at your fingertips any time of the day with the free CBC News app and online at cbcnews.ca. Download the CBC News app and stay connected wherever you are.
The weather update is brought to you by Direct Buy Furnace. To cool and clean the air in your home, call Direct Buy Furnace. Installing Trane, the most reliable heating and cooling brand.
CBC Science and Climate Specialist Darius Madavi is here with our province-wide weather forecast. We got a bit of rain, we got a blast of snow, and that's it?
That's it. It looks like that's it, at least for a little while and for almost all of the province. Maybe a little bit more in just the very extremes, but we'll talk about that in a second. But yeah, I finally got to switch out my Legend for the one with snow and rain on it, so that was exciting. And maybe we'll see more of that in the future. For now, it looks like just the only rain we're seeing is coming into the northwest. You can see that a little bit of it starts to creep near the southeast, but by Friday afternoon, this should start to come into the Kootenays, but it'll be probably just a drizzle for the most part. It's not until we get later into the weekend we might start to see some real precipitation make its way back into the interior, just pushing through the coast, probably Sunday into Monday that we'll start to see that. So a while away still. In terms of temperatures, we have come up a little bit compared to yesterday and the day before, but we're going up a little bit more tomorrow. We go down, of course, at night, and then we swing up back into the mid-20s, and then we're pretty much around there for heading into the weekend. So temperatures looking pretty nice across the province as we have some sunny skies as that clearing pattern happens. The clearing pattern was spreading from north to south, so we see that sun, but then a bit more cloud is going to creep in by tomorrow morning, tomorrow afternoon for the north. So that cloud may make its way down further south in the next few days as well. But for now, it looks like we've got sunny skies across the entire bottom half of the province. The only cloud making its way into the north, and still, again, some showers for the northwest. And if we zoom in to here in Vancouver, we see those sunny skies tomorrow. We see those sunny skies once again on Friday. A bit of cloud creeping in for probably a mix of sun and cloud on Saturday, still plenty of sunshine. And then it's not till Sunday and Monday we see those showers, we see temperatures come back down, and that is looking a little bit more like fall.
Almost like we're going into a different season.
A little bit, yeah.
Thanks, Darius.
Thanks, Dan.
That is your late news for Wednesday. Thank you for joining us tonight. For news at any hour, check our website as you do, cbc.ca/BC. Your next local news is on the early edition on CBC Radio 1. That begins tomorrow morning at 5:30. Have a good night.